After extensive research into the economic strategies of the Trump administration, especially its aggressive use of tariffs, one thing has become increasingly clear: the United States is trying to avoid, or at least delay, an inevitable economic and geopolitical clash with China. The intent behind the tariffs may have been to rebalance trade and reduce dependence on foreign manufacturing, but the implementation has been risky and controversial. Renowned financial mind Ray Dalio, founder of Bridgewater Associates and author of Principles, has been vocal about the dangers of United States economic policy being driven by short-term fixes rather than structural reform. In Dalio's framework of long-term debt cycles and declining empires, America is already deep into a stage of decline. Instead of proactive reform, we've often resorted to printing more money, inflating markets, and avoiding hard decisions. These are not solutions, they are temporary patches on a crumbling foundation. A strong economy requires a strong foundation. And if the current blueprint isn't holding up, perhaps it's time to rebuild it entirely. That includes revisiting our Constitution, a 235-year-old document written in a world that didn't know automation, cryptocurrency, or globalized AI. We're told the United States has a strong economy. Yet every day feels like we're walking on economic eggshells, constantly teetering between inflation and recession. Recession, by definition, is 2 consecutive quarters of declining GDP, rising unemployment, decreased consumer spending, and reduced investments across sectors. Inflation, meanwhile, is the increase in prices and a reduction in the purchasing power of money. It can be triggered by demand pull, which is too much money chasing too few goods, cost push, which involves rising production costs, and expansionary monetary policy, which is excessive money printing. Each has its own causes and solutions, but the reality is that we've been flirting with both for the better part of a decade. The COVID-19 pandemic, which began in 2019, only accelerated the decline. And while we've had time to recover, our economic model still feels unstable. Why? Because the root issues haven't been fixed, they've been prolonged. Rebuilding an economy from the ground up isn't simple. Historically, countries haven't fully dismantled their systems, but they have made massive overhauls. South Africa's post-apartheid constitution, Germany's basic law after World War II, Japan's new governance structure post-1945, these nations didn't cling to old blueprints, they rewrote the future. Historically, countries haven't fully dismantled their systems, but they have made massive overhauls. South Africa's post-apartheid constitution, Germany's basic law after World War II, Japan's new governance structure post-1945. These nations didn't cling to old blueprints, they rewrote the future. America hasn't done that. We're still operating under a constitution written in 1787. And while it's been amended, many of its foundations reflect an era long gone. In a world where innovation moves at the speed of light, is it wise to rely on 18th century ideals? History is cyclical. The rise and fall of empires have always followed similar trajectories: economic overstretch, internal division, and failure to adapt. The rise and fall of empires have always followed similar trajectories: economic overstretch, internal division, and failure to adapt. Let's look at a few examples. The Soviet Union, from 1922 to 1991, replaced the Russian Empire only to collapse under economic strain and ideological rigidity. The British Empire, spanning from 1583 to 1997, fell from global dominance after being weakened by 2 world wars and global decolonization. And the Ottoman Empire, which lasted from 1299 to 1922, crumbled after internal decay and defeat in World War I. The United States, now over 200 years old, is showing similar symptoms. BRICS, which stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, is more than just an acronym. It's, well, a vision of a multipolar world. The group now includes other players like Iran, Egypt, and the UAE, and is promoting alternative financial systems to rival the US-dominated IMF and World Bank. It's a vision of a multipolar world. The group now includes other players like Iran, Egypt, and the UAE, and is promoting alternative financial systems to rival the US-dominated IMF and World Bank. Their goals: trade in local currencies to challenge the dominance of the US dollar, establish infrastructure banks to bypass Western-controlled finance, and leverage energy reserves and demographic growth for geopolitical influence. The United States is reacting, not leading, and that is dangerous for a superpower. BRICS is reshaping the global order with economic and political power. Minister Louis Farrakhan once described Donald Trump as being sent by God, not as a savior, but as a mirror. Trump's presidency forced the country to confront its fractures, racism, corruption, inequality, and economic fragility. Trump's presidency forced the country to confront its fractures, racism, corruption, inequality, and economic fragility. While many reject his policies or rhetoric, Trump's term exposed one undeniable truth: America is broken in ways we've ignored for decades. His economic nationalism, though deeply flawed in execution, may have been an attempt to halt our decline, to rebuild the walls before the storm hits. But that requires more than tariffs or slogans. It requires a new blueprint. The United States stands at a crossroads. Do we continue patching outdated systems with monetary band-aids and reactive policies? Or do we finally confront our economic, political, and legal shortcomings? Do we continue patching outdated systems with monetary band-aids and reactive policies? Or do we finally confront our economic, political, and legal shortcomings? Rebuilding from the ground up isn't easy, but as history has shown, those who fail to adapt are the ones who fall. The next great power is already preparing its foundation. Subscribe, share, and join the conversation. targetzone.biz/. Thanks for watching. If you believe it's time to rethink America's foundation, share this video and let's start the conversation.